Hello and welcome back. So, in this video we're going to be covering the lore for the Astra Millitarum / Imperial Guard. Who they are, what they do and what they stand for and all the rest of it. Before we begin, if you'd like to watch more videos like this one, please hit the subscribe button and smash the bell button. Thank you. The Astra Millitarum, also known as the Imperial Guard in colloquial Low Gothic, is the largest coherent fighting force in the galaxy. They serve as the Imperium of Man's primary combat force and the first line of defence from the myriad threats which threaten the existence of the human race in the late 41st millennium. It is comprised of countless billions of men and women, hundreds of thousands of different regiments, supported by a vast array of light and heavy armoured vehicles that provide the Guard's primary offensive punch. The Astra Millitarum are usually the first Imperial force to respond to a threat if a world's Planetary Defence Force, or PDF, fails to suppress it. They also garrison major locations of strategic or cultural interest to the Imperium and are often found in defensive roles, supported by legions of heavy armour and thundering artillery. The Imperial Guard fight a never-ending war for survival of mankind in an unrelentingly hostile universe. The Astra Millitarum is often referred to as the hammer of the Emperor. The sheer amount of force that the Imperial Guard can bring to bear on the enemy is devastating, but it's not as direct or precise as their Space Marine allies, who are described as the scalpel of the Emperor. There is no universal uniform or regimental command hierarchy in the Imperial Guard, although it's compulsory for every regiment to have at least one commissar to maintain the discipline and morale of the men while watching for any signs of corruption or taint in the ranks. However, it is worth noting that a number of worlds copy the uniform used by the regiments of the Cadian shock troops, who are viewed as being the most effective of the Imperial Guard's infantry units. The main tactic of the Imperial Guard is to overwhelm the enemy with their endless numbers, whilst at the same time hammer them into submission with devastating artillery and crush them with the powerful main battle tanks. The origins of the Astra Millitarum date back to the Great Crusade, to the late 30th millennium, when the Emperor of Mankind conquered the stars and forged the Imperium of Man. On the front line of this mission of expansion and reclamation were the Space Marine legions, the Adeptus Astartes, the finest warriors humanity had ever created, each the equal of a dozen normal men. Despite their formidable battle prowess, the forces of the Space Marines were not limitless, and the relentless demands of building a galactic empire pushed the legions further apart. Separated by countless thousands of light years, their presence became ever more scattered and dilute. The Emperor required more manpower to ensure the momentum of the Great Crusade did not falter, and so the Imperial Army was created, known in High Gothic as Imperialis Auxilia. The Imperial Army was a vital part of the expedition fleets sent out to claim the stars in the Emperor's name. Gargantuan numbers of brave troops, millions growing to billions of men, ranks of armoured battle tanks and mighty armadas of capital-class starships were raised, all subordinate to the Legiones Astartes. At first, the Imperial Army was employed for garrison duties and to mop up resistance in the wake of the Legion's assaults. Utilised where the back of an enemy was broken and compliance to the Imperium required only a watchful presence. Eventually, certainly, by the time the Crusade reached the eastern fringe of the galaxy, the Imperial Army was deployed at the forefront of the Crusade, fighting alongside the power-armoured super soldiers of the Adeptus Astartes. But everything changed when the galaxy was ripped asunder by the treachery of the War Master Horus, triggering a cataclysmic interstellar civil war that engulfed the newly founded Imperium. In the aftermath of the Horus heresy, the organizational structure of the forces of the Imperium were revised significantly to prevent the possibility of large-scale rebellion occurring again. The titanic armies of the Imperial forces were divided. The 9 remaining loyalist Space Marine legions were split into chapters. The Imperial army, as it was, ceased to exist. The link between fleet and army was severed. Never again would ground commanders be given direct control over interstellar warships. From its ashes were born the Imperial Navy and the Imperial Guard, known officially as the Astra Millitarum. The Astra Millitarum was reorganized into planetary-sized units known as the Militarum Regimentos, which in turn were divided into smaller regiments. Commissars of the Officio Prefectus were introduced to ensure loyalty and discipline. The independence of the newly formed Imperial Guard ensured that, should a regiment turn against their oaths, they would not be able to spread their treachery beyond a single world, and should a Navy fleet mutiny, then they would not have the ability to resupply or deploy ground troops. The Imperium had learned a painful lesson from the dark days of the Horus heresy. One, its rules were determined never to repeat in the grim days to come. The Imperium is vast on a scale incomprehensible to mortal man. Communication and travel between the glinting motes of this far-flung stellar empire are laden with risk. The inimicable realm of the warp provides the only conduit for interstellar movement or messages, yet it also taints or temporarily displaces much of that which plunges into its depths, confounding the Imperium's attempts at centralized control or unified strategy. On every border and every battlefront, humanity's worst nightmares press ever inwards and are held at bay only through the vast, constant sacrifice. In these dark times, warfare on a galactic scale is a matter of soulless, grinding logistics. Only the Astra Millitarum can marshal the manpower to fight such a war. The Imperial Guard fights punishing battles of attrition, which incalculable lives may be expended for each objective achieved. An Imperial Guard army must utilize the twin advantages of vast numbers and overwhelming firepower to annihilate its foes. Where Xenos aircraft dance and weave with impossible grace, the Imperial Guard simply fills the sky with a thunderstorm of munitions from which no amount of aerobatic skill can save the foe. Where heretical bastions stand defiant, Imperial Guard commanders call down artillery bombardments that reduce all to rubble with their apocalyptic fury. The greatest enemy of threats are torn apart in the crossfire of thousands of heavy weapons, or smashed aside by the gallant charge of hundreds of Imperial tanks. The enemies of mankind may employ dark sciences or alien weapons beyond humanity's ken, but such deviance comes to naught in the face of honest human intolerance backed by a sufficient number of guns. For all the might of the armour and artillery, the true backbone of the Astra Millitarum is the countless waves of infantry who take to the field. The sheer scale of the battles fought by the Imperial Guard is dehumanizing in the extreme. Entire regiments of brave warriors are reduced to statistics upon the scrolling screens of Imperial strategers. Grains of sand sliding through the fingers of greater and more privileged individuals, yet every single company, every single squad, every single Imperial Guardsman who lifts their lasgun and takes a stand in defence of their species is crucial. Without a constant deluge of new recruits, the Imperial Guard would cease to function. A battle may see the deployment of millions, yet time and again it is a single heroic company who carry their charge to secure a crucial gatehouse or pivotal objective. Squads of desperate men battle impossible odds with nothing but their courage and faith driving them to hold the line while their valuable betters are evacuated to safety. Every day that the Imperium endures, Imperial Guardsmen stand in the face of beasts more hellish than their worst nightmares. Men charge screaming alongside their comrades into the mouth of hell, lasguns spitting death at the foe even as Xenos munitions tear blooded holes into the human ranks. In a galaxy of never-ending warfare that makes the perpetually outmatched men of the Imperial Guard so admirable is that they know near constant fear, yet they lift their weapons, plant their feet, and fight on regardless. Their lives may be short and brutal, their sacrifices insultingly thankless, but it is because of the Imperial Guard that the Imperium continues to weather the storm of these dark times. The Astra Millitarum is a colossal organisation, dwarfing every other military force in the Imperium for sheer manpower, and matched only by the Imperial Navy in logistical complexity and universal significance. It has been claimed that for every visible star from the surface of Terra, there are 100 million Imperial Guardsmen waging war on some distant world in the Imperium's name. Though nobody could possibly know how many Imperial Guardsmen there truly are at any one moment. So vast are their numbers, and so quickly do those numbers change. However, what is certain is that every one of these brave souls, and more besides, are required to fight and die for the Imperium in order to try to preserve it. What this all boils down to is the regiment. The regiment is the building block of the Astra Millitarum, and the nature of each regiment defines how it is to fight, how it is to be equipped, in the manner of which it is best employed. The regiments are raised either as part of a tithe that all worlds contribute to the Imperium, or as necessary from worlds within a particular distance of the newly opened war zone. It is a rare world in the Imperium that has not raised at least one regiment of the Imperial Guard, with the overwhelming majority of those being the tithe-exempt Forge World of the Adeptus Mechanicus and the chapter homeworlds of the Adeptus Astartes, both of which produce their own particular fighting forces. Though regarded as such by many within the Departmentum Unitorum, a regiment of the Imperial Guard is not a uniform mass of warriors equal in might and utility to every other regiment. On the contrary, regiments vary immensely in size, structure, and purpose, from small, deadly armoured regiments to bewilderingly large regiments of siege infantry. In truth, the regiment is a difficult thing to define, but some might classify it thusly. A regiment is the operational unit of the Astra Millitarum, a discrete formation of Imperial Guardsmen, all trained and equipped to operate in a single way, and all drawn from a single world and its dominant culture, the combined regiments forming the Militarum Regimentum. All the regiments of the type raised from that world. All of the factors are subject to local variation and prevailing logistical doctrine at times. All the fighting men and women taken from a single world at a single time have been classified as a single regiment, creating units of millions of. While other periods and places have attempted to define a set number of warriors or an arbitrarily calculated fighting strength to determine a regiment, nonetheless some elements remain consistent. At the top of every single regiment of the Astra Millitarum is a single commanding officer, commonly given the rank of colonel, who serves the frontline combat leader. Traditional expectations are that the colonel takes to the field with his or her men, leading in person, and is often accompanied by advisors such as the Imperial Navy, Aeronautica Imperialis, liaisons to provide air support, Adeptus Ministorum preachers and psychers and tech priests, and the dreaded commissars. Each regiment is typically divided into several companies, each of which is commanded by a captain or major. A company normally consists of several hundreds warriors and can serve well as a fighting force unit in its own right, with individual companies commonly split off to achieve distinct objectives pertaining to a regiment's overall mission. Within each company, the unit is divided further. The exact term used varies by type of company, with vehicle companies divided into squadrons, infantry operating in platoons, and artillery operating in batteries. Each platoon, squadron, or battery is typically commanded by a lieutenant, the most junior of officers new to the service of the Imperial Guard. The most basic building block of the regiment is the squad. In an infantry regiment, the squad is the smallest operational unit, overseen by a sergeant. In an armoured or artillery regiment, each squad is given a single vehicle or artillery piece to control, with different troopers serving as gunners, loaders, drivers, spotters, and a variety of other roles as required by their duties. So we're going to leave it there for today. If you'd like to see other videos to do with the Imperial Guard, let me know. Astra Millitarum, as you like to call them. Space Marines, possibly even Orcs or other Xenos races. Let me know. Put them in the comments down below. Tell me what you thought about this one. If you've stuck to the end, awesome sauce. You can put that in the comments, the word awesome sauce, if you've stuck to the end. And let me know what you'd like to see in the future, pretty much. And that's about it. Thank you very much.